From beyond the farthest reaches of our galaxy they come. Two brains pulsing with a strange energy. These space brains come to share their love of science fiction movies.
Hi, and welcome to Space Brains, the show where we joy watch sci-fi movies and then talk about what was good and what was great. I'm Surrey, and this is Mark.
Hiya, it's episode 78, and tonight we are talking about science fiction film Old. Came out last year, 2021, and we're going to go on a nice deep dive about getting old on a beach, Surrey.
Old. We live in Mandurah. We're getting old on a beach right now.
We are, and there's plenty of other oldies around. Nothing wrong with getting old, nothing wrong with maturing, but when you mature at a fast rate, as this film suggests, maybe there's a problem.
There are problems.
So in this episode, we're going to reveal what we thought about the film, the ins and outs of narrative and film language, plus a nice deep dive, I would presume, into aging, but I could be totally wrong, that the filmmakers are proposing. Old was written and directed by Shyamalan. I can never get his last name.
It's pronounced Shyamalan ding dong. I'm sorry, M. Night. He's one of our favourites.
Yeah, he is.
He'll be on this show one day soon.
He will be, because this is the thing with him, is he's done a bucket load of science fiction. We've already done one of his other ones, After Earth.
Oh, that was him, was it?
That was him with Will Smith and Will Smith's son or whatever. That was his film. So this is the second time on Space Brains. We've had a couple of directors now. They're repeating. And he definitely, if you go back, Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, there's a whole bunch. Signs. There's a whole bunch that really we're going to go back to at some different points in time. This film was based on a graphic novel called Sandcastle by Pierre Oscar Levy, and you needed probably a French accent for that, and Frédéric Gabitas. I said it in my brain and it came out totally wrong. Sorry, Frederick. And M. Night got this as a Father's Day present, that graphic novel. How nice of a present is that for Father's Day?
That's nice. And a couple of his daughters feature in this film in various, not behind, in front of the camera.
Yep.
Directly, but they're involved. So turn back now if you have not seen this film. This is M. Night Shyamalan and sorry M. What does your M stand for anyway?
Yeah, I know.
Turns out his M stands for Emma. Yeah. If you haven't
you are picking on him. He's never going to come on the show now.
He's never coming on now. Anyway, go and watch the film because we are going to spoil it.
We are. We're going to warn him.
And as I said, this is M. Night Shyamalan, so that means you don't want to spoil until you watched it.
That's true.
Go watch it, tune back in, and then you won't be spoiled.
Yes.
It'd be great.
What a twist. It is what a twist. So, like all these films are about. So the actual synopsis of Old is a vacationing family discovers that on a secluded beach where they're relaxing for a few hours is somehow causing them to age rapidly, reducing their entire lives into a single day. So, of course, the question is, get the hell off the beach, but it's not that simple. So it's kind of a good old-fashioned high-concept film. Like if you were stuck on the beach and aging this rapidly that by the end, by the time the sun goes down, it's a good old ticking clock, isn't it? By the time the sun goes down, you're going to be dead. So what would you do? How would you get off the beach? How would you react to the characters that you're stuck with on the beach? What happens to you? Who dies first?
I don't know.
So, yeah, it's a really good what-if high-concept question. So it's no surprise that when he looked at this original story, that idea really grabbed me. And this film does it. It's not one for the faint-hearted, I felt like it is a turning screwdriver, like just make the scene tighter and tighter on your characters.
It does make you feel a little bit awkward at times.
It is a tension-pulling story, this one. So I loved this experience. What was your number one takeaway from Old, Surrey?
Did you know there was a movie that had Jack Nicholson and Marlon Brando in it?
Mm-hmm.
What is it called? And now I'm going to stab a black man.
Young? Was that
No,
what it's called?
I don't know.
No, you don't know.
That's my takeaway. No. And of course, having
because-
seen the film here, the surgeon, as we discover, is suffering from schizophrenia.
Yeah.
And so he just at various times, that's how he loses the plot.
Yes,
he'll be in the middle of doing something, and then he'll just bring up this film.
Yeah.
And you know what? I never even bothered looking it up because I just figured it's just some crazy person. And also, apparently, in his schizophrenia, he is raging racist.
Yeah, he is. Well, it brings out the truth in people, doesn't it? Those sort of mental disorders as they come along. I think as you get dementia, you probably start.
He was a bit biased at the very beginning of his time on the beach, and as he got older, as he aged, it got worse.
Yes.
No, but I did like my number one takeaway on this. Really, is the way people can express change throughout a lifetime.
Yeah.
Is always very fascinating. So
Yeah, right.
he is a surgeon. He's very competent. He's smart. He's wealthy. He's good looking. All of these sorts of things. But as he's aged in this film, it's like super rapidly, his mask has slipped.
Yeah.
And these character traits, which, you know, for example, why did he have that knife in the first place?
Yeah.
Like that wasn't a knife that came from the food basket.
He's a surgeon. He's just always carrying a knife around
That
just
was
to slip
his
people.
knife. And you can tell, you'd imagine when he's younger, he would have just gone, you know, I like to carry it with me. And as he's gotten a bit older and he's sort of slipping a bit, his mask is coming down. It turns out he's actually a bit scared. He's frightened and he's going to use it. So, you know, that's what I got. I really just liked him continually bringing up this movie. When there was one scene in particular where he's everyone's all arguing. He says, "Wait, I think we've lost sight of what was really important here." And everyone stops, and you expect him to say, "How are we going to get off time?" But he says, "There was a movie," and you go, "Oh my god, is that really the important point?"
Yeah.
So anyway.
It's a great way of progressing him downhill, wasn't it? Because as he kind of, like, it was very subtle the first time he said it, and then the next time it got more severe. That time as well, we were in a moment where it's like, oh, panic, and then he says that, and you're like, oh, something's not right.
Yeah,
then when he does the tumour bit as well, he like starts talking about it, you're like, oh god, focus on the.
Well,
it was a real downward
when he
spiral.
stopped that, because that was the first time he mentioned it, I think, or was it the second time?
That was the second time. Yeah,
but when he sort of stopped, he said it. It was almost like I got the feeling it was like his bedside manner. He was trying to distract everyone else's thoughts.
Yeah.
Think about this movie.
Yeah.
While we're cutting this open and doing this horrible
and
thing.
maybe hyper focusing himself. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. It kind of seemed a bit natural at that point. So tell me though, Mark, was this a warning or an experiment?
I'd say warning, because don't go to random beaches when you're in holiday resorts. Don't rely on the concierge to take you there.
You know, Camp Crystal Lake.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but that's not true, because I've done it myself in Thailand and Bali. You take their advice and you go on the trip. So what seems very open-ended is suddenly disaster. But I think more so than that, there is the actual bit of him saying this whole, you know, the wife, she realizes that the trip was a bit too good to be true. So that to me is the actual clincher, which kind of happens a little bit later when they suddenly realize, oh, hang on, we are all sick. Why are we all sick? Why are we all suffering from illness? And this hotel package was suddenly a real special package that came out of nowhere, and I seem to get emailed the offer. And so there's kind of like the old-fashioned warning here of something being offered to you and you take it up, and there's a payoff, isn't there? There's like a scam, for example, there's something in it that you're going to get at. And it's what's great in this movie is it's very subtle, and the characters don't realize till later, and we as well as the audience don't really get that information either early. You know, it seems like a lovely resort, it seems normal. I have, as I said, I've been on a family trip, and my wife and I, when we were younger, also went to places like Thailand and Bali and things, and you go on these lovely trips, and the concierge or the people taking after you go, oh, there's a trip out to the islands, just, you know, they'll pick you up at the hotel and they just take you there, and you go out, and it's kind of all included, food, basket of wine, whatever, and they're beautiful little treats, and you kind of get into you trust the resort people to look after you, you know, because you don't really have a choice in it. Like, you're kind of like a little kid on holiday. So I feel that it's a warning because they did trust that, and as an audience we trusted that, and then suddenly realizing, oh no, there's more to it. And that's what there is, and he does this in a lot of his films, isn't it? There's a twist, and that is the twist later on, is that no, this isn't just a resort, it's a science experiment. It's a pharmaceutical company that's actually behind this, and they've realized they can use the beach to their advantage in their testing. And so there's much more to the story than we know as an audience. It's kept a mystery until the end.
Yeah.
And he's guilty of doing this, or he's very good at doing this in a lot of his films. He keeps that secret to the end.
And I can see this is definitely not a movie of hope.
Yeah.
And it's a weird movie because what I really liked was that this pharmaceutical company didn't seem to be doing this like their apparent motive was to help people. Like they had moved down that mad scientist route of I'll kill a couple of people to save the world.
To save the world, yeah.
Which I also think if you're willing to kill a couple of people, then you should be willing to kill yourself for that thing.
Yeah. And that's the thing that people don't know.
Yes.
They're not volunteering, you know, like
yes, that's
I've known a couple of people, you know, on kind of a cancer where they're heading down to, like, there's nothing that can help them, and they get offered like a special treatment that is experimental, you know, and it's like a trial, and there's risks associated with that. But of course they say, well, yeah, it's worth the risk because I'm going to die anyway. I don't, you know, but they sign up willingly to it, you know, because they could also say, no, I don't want to do that, you know, because of the side effects. Whereas in this film, there's no warning.
But see, I would also say that this does sort of come as a bit of an experiment here, because we do get this little, morality lesson from the main couple that we follow as they age, and they're initially there. They've got marriage problems, mistrust, problems with personality, problems with bits and pieces.
History.
And then as they get on and they're old, they sit there and goes, we were angry. I don't really even know what that was about, and it's just nice. Well, they together,
and we'll talk a bit more about the narrative. Like they progress from they're about to have a divorce at the end. They're basically back together, but they are forced in this experiment to confront and talk through their problems and tell the story of, you know, her cheating and him knowing, and they're given that time to each other to actually, you know, go through those problems. Whereas at the start, it was more like, well, we're just going to get divorced. We don't care. We're moving on.
So I don't. There's not a very clear cut between. It's definitely not hope, because we're not getting any hope.
There's no hope. No
warning is often you find yourself in trouble of your own making. Is usually what they're warning about, which is kind of what this is about. This, as you said, this trust. Do we trust? Put our trust in authority, and a bit of greed as well. You know, the fact that here's a free holiday to this beautiful island resort, and you go, okay, this sounds really good. But at the same time, it's also a bit experimental in that we're seeing, what happens to these people through a lifetime in the course of a day. So that's quite good.
But what did you think? Did you think it's a hope, warning, or experiment? Let us know. What was your first impression?
First impression, this is funny because when you go in and it says M. Night Shyamalan on the opening credits somewhere, you're sort of trained, having watched, from his first big films that he brought out through, you go, there's going to be something special.
Yes.
Like, there's going to be something here. And so I was keeping an eye out for it. But of course, he did this one very well. Unlike, for example, The Village, I feel I kind of guessed the whole, it's not actually, because they've never said the year, that sort of guessed that, but I wasn't sure if it was
Let's not spoil it.
Post-apocalyptic, or was it something else? Yeah. But, and so I was looking at this one, and this one, I was hoping that I wouldn't get it. So I already knew the basic premise that they're aging, because that was in the trailers. I saw that one of those early, and it's called Old.
Yep.
So,
the poster's like a girl in a bikini, kind of half of her is her age, young, and then the other half is her skeleton.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, so it's kind of like...
I didn't see that one, but yes. So my first impression was, where they're going to get me on this. And he tricked me right at the very start with the cocktails. Yeah. Because they're handed his cocktails. There was a hint when you realise it was this designed for your tastes that we, from the information we got from you earlier. And I was like, oh, that's a bit odd. Like, it wasn't these are the cocktails that you selected when you chose the package. This is, we've created these based on, the profiling that you gave to us. Yeah. And that to me that's a big specific bit of information. And I was wondering, how's that fitting in here? But but I couldn't pick it.
Yeah, I didn't pick that either because, again, I've been on those holidays where you walk into the hotel and they do say, "Oh, here's a welcome cocktail" or something.
Yeah,
you go, "Yeah, okay, sure."
On my honeymoon, we got a honeymoon upgrade.
Yeah,
and that had there was a bath had already been drawn for us or something.
Yeah.
And there was a champagne and chocolates.
Yep. Yeah.
Type of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is funny because neither my wife nor I like champagne, but
Yeah, we had that experience as well on our honeymoon, and they knew. So it was like there was a cake, which was always, I was like, I don't really want to eat a cake right now at this time of night, kind of coming in off a plane and blah, blah, blah. But that was kind of a bit random. And then the next day there was like a breakfast basket of goodies or something like that. But I have been on just a normal holiday, again, Thailand, whatever. And when you checked in, they were like, "Oh, here's a welcome cocktail," and you're not really told what it is, and you go, "Okay, well, went on holiday."
Shame if you're alcoholic.
Yeah, that's right. So you just go for it.
Hi, welcome to Thailand. You're going to regress now. Yeah. So you'll be here a while.
Yeah, if you've gone to Thailand, well, you probably are going back on the steps. Yeah.
Okay, so tell me though, have you seen this movie before? Is this your first time?
No, I just watched it really recently, so I did look at it again for Spacebrains, but yeah, I literally came across it about a month or so ago, so yeah, it was just the first time through. Hadn't really heard anything about it myself, didn't know if it was successful or not. Good old M. Night always tickles my sort of fancy way back with Sixth Sense, and so I'm a fan of Signs. I didn't mind The Village as well, Unbreakable.
Unbreakable was great.
Yeah,
that's a superhero film I can get behind.
Yeah, and recently I actually just watched, I've bloody forgotten the name of it just off the top of my head, but it's not science fiction, it's paranormal from him, which it's like two kids go up to grandparents' house, and it's all done through video cameras, a bit Blair Witch style.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I hadn't watched any of his latest films, and that one was quite good, I thought, as well. But it's not science fiction. So when I saw this, I thought, oh yeah, he's done another one. I kind of got the premise, these people are going to be stuck on this beach, but I didn't know anything beyond that. So I was really interested to see what he did with that. I think you can see his style really quickly because, like you just said, like there's little nuggets of information about what maybe is the truth really quickly, and it's up to you as the audience to pick that up. Also, the sort of film style is very intense, like we're really drawn into the story really quickly, and he does do some really abstract things with camera, like, really early when the parents were arguing in the hotel, like the camera panned left, followed them into another room, and then panned right all the way back into as they followed back in, they were arguing. He also does have a bit of a focus on kids. He's always had a bit of a focus on children in his stories, and in this one the parents are arguing and we kind of then ignore the parents and we go back to what the kids are doing, and the parents are just kind of background noise, which is interesting, and the kids do heavily focus. So yeah, it was my first time. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And as I said earlier, I felt once you got into the fun and games of this story, it felt like it really was a perfect example for a writer of do the worst to your characters and then kind of take it up another notch. Keep going. Just you're sticking that knife in them and you're making it worse. You're sticking them on an island and there's no way to get off it. And in fact, the worst, it's worse than that. Now there's a storm, and now there's someone that's like a murderer. And now there's a schizophrenic in your group, it just seemed like the screwdriver kept turning, and maybe that was because that ticking clock was so obvious because they were getting older and older and older really rapidly, weren't they?
The ticking clock really affected me there because you're always going, they've got to try and get off here. They've got to come up with something because they're all going to they've got, I don't know, 10 hours maybe or something left at some point. You're sitting there going, they've got 5 hours.
Yeah. And as an audience, once we knew what was going actually on, like how quickly they were aging, those little signs like the dog dying and then the grandma dying, it was like, oh, no, this is real. Like, you guys need to get off this beach.
Yeah, you're not going to be saved.
No.
It's not going to be some... Because I was wondering, is this going to be some sort of, fantasy island thing?
Yeah.
Like some sort of magical...
like a door will open on the ocean and
the guy drops them off there. He says, yes, I'll pick you up at 5, or if you want to leave earlier, come out here and phone me. And so I thought, okay, so at 5, we're going to have some sort of complete story on this beach about... And they're going to learn something, and some bad things are going to happen. Some good things are going to happen.
Time will rewind, or something.
And then it'll be 5 o'clock, and they will find their way out through the exit and it'll be like Narnia, you know,
Yeah.
they'll back out and they've returned back to themselves, you know, like, but that would be too nice.
That would be too nice for an M. Night Shyamalan film. So, yeah, for sure. Did you have a favourite scene?
Yeah, well, obviously, again, there's a couple in here.
Oh, come on, just pick one.
I really liked the rock climbing scene.
Right.
Because...
what a lovely scene that was.
There were a number of these scenes where they sort of have some tension and so forth, but the rock climbing one was quite good because this was a 6-year-old girl.
Yeah.
And as much as she has grown to be I don't know, she would have been about 18 or 20 at that point.
Yeah.
She's still a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
Like that's sort of that
the
funny
maturity,
thing. Is like, the brain function is different.
Yep.
But her knowledge and reasoning is still not really developed.
Yeah.
But she's climbing this thing, and again, you're sort of thinking she's getting really high, and you're thinking, could she make it?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, because even if she doesn't,
fit.
I don't know how she's going to save anyone else.
Yeah.
But at least someone got off, type of thing. And then it was just right at the very last minute, and then she falls, and shmonk. And I don't know why everyone watches them down. Like I've often thought about this. If I saw someone fall, I would not watch that.
Yeah,
Because you can't unsee something like that. That would be in your nightmares the whole time.
It was a nice pause, wasn't it? Because they were all yelling, and like you, they kind of actually they were saying to her, "Get down, get down," and then they actually went, "Oh, she might." Oh,
if she can get to that ledge.
If she gets that, if she get, and you know, there's been a tense moment to get there, but she's actually kind of getting there. And like us as an audience, it was almost like a breath. Like there was a deliberate point there, and we are then on the ground just looking up at her, and she's still, and then she just falls back. So there was that nice, you know, just holding that beat. Is she gonna? Yeah.
Mind you, I got to say another great scene. So there's a number of scenes that are kind of like that one, where they're sort of reaching something and then it doesn't quite work out, or something's a bit crap. But a scene that's quite different is when the kids, as adults, are running away from crazy knife-wielding doctor surgeon.
Yep.
And they retreat into the cave, and in there, that calcium deficiency woman. I've got a calcium deficiency.
Yeah.
It turns out she actually did.
Yeah.
So how about that? She's in there, but she's gone totally gonzo. Like she's cray-cray. Like totally.
Yeah.
I don't even know what variety of mental illness that was, but she was having a breakdown of some major sort.
I think she was past the breakdown, right?
Yeah, she was just like viewing a new reality.
Yeah.
With no help. And that's when things get bad. Yeah. And then her bones start breaking. It's just that's an absolute horror film right there.
Yeah,
that
was.
Almost like she's a monster, and that really turned my stomach. The camera just lingered a bit too long on her crumpled and disfigured body.
But it was that was like the promise of the premise a bit there, isn't it? Because like it showed, because I'd already proven it earlier, as in like the rapper who has a mid-sized sedan. When he gets stabbed, then it like is suddenly a scar, like he's not bleeding. So it already had demonstrated like the rules of the game, you know, the rules of the story. But then with that moment, when she sort of chases them in the rocks and that, because she is manic, she hits a rock, breaks an arm, the arm twists down, but then of course the time is going by, her arm then locks in heels into that awkward position, and then she hits it again. So it's like it's cracking and healing and cracking and healing, and it's that it literally killed her because she did it too much. She like turned on herself.
She's thrashing around.
Yeah, and so it's a real that to me was a real cool scene in that it's the promise of the premise to the extreme. You know, that's what I mean. Like, how could you really demonstrate the time is ticking really fast by someone dying? Like in rocks, manically crushing themselves to death, basically. Like, because there's only so many breaks you can have.
That whole sequence there, M. Night has done a few spooky parts. Signs has got some spooky parts. The Village has got some spooky parts. Sixth Sense has got some spooky parts. And I would like to see him do like a full-on horror.
Oh, yeah.
Particularly with a bit of a twist or something in there. Because he sort of has a bit of an imagination there, which is not typically horror.
Yeah.
But it's still horrifying.
Yeah, well, that other film, and I'll have to look up the name of it now. It's the one where the two teenagers go out to the grandparents, and that has a lot of more horror in it.
It's not called The Grandparents? There is a movie called The Grandparents.
No, it's not. I kind of just watched it on a whim. It was one of those ones, and it's like 90 minutes exactly.
Oh, yeah.
And because I haven't, After Earth was the last one I watched of his, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, all right, give it a go. And it's more the traditional horror film.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's done in that Blair Witch, and there's horrific moments in it like that.
You've sold me.
Yeah, no, you do check it. I can't remember the name. I'm going to have to look it up. But if you know the name, let me know.
Well, did you know that there was a movie that had Jack Nicholson
did.
Marlon Brando in it?
Yes, I did.
Do you know the name of it?
No, I don't know the name of it. What is it called, Surrey?
The Missouri Breaks.
Ah, right. Bonus
1976
points.
American Western.
Chocolate Frogs for those of you out there that guessed it.
Yes.
I when it was mentioned so much in the movie, I was the same. I should Google that. Like, I don't know it.
Well,
off the
I was
top of my
wondering,
head.
though, is this a fake
movie?
Yeah, is it a fake movie?
Is he confused?
Is he confused that there wasn't? It's like, who knows?
Yeah.
Was there something science fiction you liked in this film?
Yeah, well, I liked the purity of the science researchers scene when they were like, oh, none of these people survived. Whatever it is, experiment number, blah, 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 is done. And
Yes.
I liked that little spiel in that moment the concierge gave, and it's on to the next group, and we're doing, like you said, the justification of the ethics or the morals of it was, who was it? The epileptic woman. That was the example they gave,
Yeah,
wasn't it? They were like, so one of the characters in this story is epileptic, and they were like, oh, she survived 12 years without her medicine, the equivalent on this beach or whatever.
Yeah.
Without having an episode. So the treatment works, kind of thing. We can delay, these episodes,
for an epileptic, saying, I think it was 16 hours or something.
Yeah.
So you could 16 years.
16 years.
So if you can imagine, if you could just take, a
pill or whatever,
or whatever,
a shot
every 16 or so years,
a huge difference, isn't it?
I mean,
and it stops the seizures.
you'd only be getting 4 or 5 treatments in a lifetime.
Yep. Yeah. So I just liked that. It wasn't so much, I suppose, science fiction, but it was, because hopefully scientists aren't really doing that.
Well,
but, that moral standard.
We talked about that Chinese geneticist playing with babies. So
Yeah. But even that was called out. I think something like this would be called out if this was happening in reality pretty quickly, I'd imagine, by the science community.
Yeah, if they
Maybe.
were published.
Could they really publish these findings? I don't know. But yeah, so I liked that, and I liked that it's mixed. Like, the beach itself is not explained. Like, the beach is like a natural anomaly.
Yeah,
like,
there's something to do with the rocks around the cliff there.
Yeah. So that's not explained, doesn't need to be explained. It's just part of the setting, and these scientists have discovered it, and so that's the case. So to me, that was the bit that I just actually liked, how we had that moral dilemma with the scientists.
Yeah, it was good to see, because I think it was important to show that they're not just a bunch of evil sons of bitches. They have produced, and it's hinted that they've produced numerous very powerful and effective treatments, being able to study a lifetime in a day, which is true, because one of these problems you get is, what are the long-term side effects, or how well does, drug XYZ work? And they sort of study it for like 6 months or 12 months or whatever, and they go, well, it seems pretty good. And then they put it in, and there's you get something like thalidomide, where it causes, massive birth defects.
Yeah.
But that's kind of very delayed, because it takes, minimum it's going to take 9 months, and it doesn't cause birth defects in everyone who takes the drug.
Yeah.
So it takes a population to take it over years to then get, and in any given population there's going to be a certain number of birth defects, but on the island here you could very quickly
accelerate that
in a day or two. They could just test it on a couple pregnant women that go in there, and then bingo, they found out. They go, well, that's not a good one.
That's right.
That seems to cause, unicornism, which is
fine, but
which is great if you're a unicorn. But if you're a human, you shouldn't be a unicorn, unless you can be, in which case you should be.
So moving on, sidestepping into the world of science, we have the Science Fiction Film Festival coming up.
Science Fiction Film Festival.
By the time you're listening to this, you should have already got your ticket. I think we're going to be very close to the festival.
The tickets are on sale now.
They are.
We have announced the author. We've got a workshop with a science fiction author, Amanda Bridgman.
Yeah,
She has written numerous books, a couple of series, the Aurora series, which I think she's got about 6 or 7 books on that one.
Wow.
That's sort of a military sci-fi.
Yep.
And then she has this psycho-criminal near-future sci-fi called the Salvation series. So that's The Subjugate is the first book of that one. And that has been taken for development as a new TV series.
Awesome. Cool.
So that's cool. She'll be presenting a bit of a workshop there about science fiction writing.
Yep.
And then who did we just secure as our filmmaker workshop presenter?
Ben Young.
Ben Young.
Ben Young is a West Australian feature filmmaker who has an extensive career, first of all, locally in Australia. He's made an award-winning drama feature film here in Western Australia called Hounds of Love, and then he's moved on after that. The success of that was critically successful, quite a few different festivals around the world. He moved into the Netflix sci-fi feature film Extinction, which is available on Netflix. Go check it out. And then since then as well, he's continued part of that Clickbait series on Netflix, and recently just finished another feature film in the States with Billy Bob Thornton. So he's the real deal. He's a big filmmaker, very successful, does call West Australian home. So very proud to kind of bring him back to WA and have him featured. He will be doing a filmmaker workshop. So if you're someone interested in that, he's also an extensive scriptwriter. He's written a lot of his own stuff.
I think to be a director, you probably end up being a scriptwriter.
So he's had this experience on the kind of Australian film scene. He's had the critical success around festivals. He's made a big science fiction action film, with Netflix, and he's also now recently worked with, and he's worked in TV as well, if that's your kind of cup of tea. And also, just coming back from the States off another big feature. So he knows his way around, I think, everything of filmmaking. So it's going to be a great, hopefully, hands-on workshop with him.
And he speaks our language, West Australianese.
Yes, that's right. So we're super excited. He's locked in. And if you haven't got a ticket, get a ticket. What are you waiting for?
And go watch some of his films. You get Clickbait and Extinction on Netflix right now.
Yep.
And you can, Hounds of Love, you can stream that. It's like, probably $4.99 on Google Play.
And, he might get 20 cents from that or something. So, come on, support the artist. Yeah, he might. Someone gets something out of that. But yeah, it's great that we can announce him. So Saturday, the 21st of May, it's all happening in Mandurah. Head on down, buy a ticket, spend the day down here, shop around town, restaurants, pubs, whatever it tickles your fancy, bring the whole family. You can get a ticket for the workshops and the Red Carpet Film Festival side of things, because we didn't just say that, actually. We're also showing films.
We've got a whole lot of movies to get through between now and our notification date.
Yep, so plenty of young filmmakers out. Well, by the time this episode comes out, it might be about then, I think.
Oh, about pretty close to that. So we will have going to been.
Yeah, we're going to get really sci-fi'd.
To talking time travel language, yes. We will have already been probably going to blow our eyeballs to pieces
with some great sci-fi.
So,
which I'm excited about, but because it's short sci-fi films, it's exciting.
Oh, we got some features too. We got
we have features as well. Yeah, we've got plenty. We ended up having a whole bunch submitted: Mandurah, Australian, West Australian, and international. So I'm excited.
It's gonna be amazing.
If you're someone out there that has submitted, get ready to be notified, and also reach out. Let us know about your experience submitting and being part of the festival. So let's get stuck into some details about Old. We're going to talk a bit about the plot. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the symbolism. We're going to talk a little bit about, the filming, editing style. We kind of mentioned some of those bits before. So just before we get into that, we have mentioned M. Night a few times based on that graphic novel Sandcastle.
Pierre Oscar.
You can have a go. Levy.
And Frederick Peters.
Okay,
I don't know how to pronounce.
I know.
Frederick is probably, I don't know, South Korean, for all I know.
For all we know. If you're out there listening, come correct Surrey, give him a slap like Will Smith and get him to correct your name. So, look, there's a whole bunch of just what I would call working actors in this film, sorry. Like, some have had some big success on different levels, but we're not dealing with those actors like Will Smith and Chris Rock on stage slapping each other. We're dealing with kind of the good old, mix of working actors. So there's a whole bunch in there. Gael, García, Vicky, Krieps, I think, or Krieps, Rufus Sewell, Alex Wolff, Thomason McKenzie, Abby Lee, Nikki Amuku-Bird, Ken Lung, Eliza Scallon, and Aaron Perry. So there's a whole bunch of, really good actors. I thought the diversity in this cast was really interesting.
So did I get it right? The surgeon, that Rufus Sewell, was he from Dark City?
Yeah, he might have been.
I think he was the protagonist in Dark
I think
City.
he might have been too. Yeah. It might be. Yeah, now that you're saying that, I'm like, okay, yeah. And I mean, look, as I said, a lot of these guys are working actors, and it was something that you might not recognise their names, but you probably recognise their faces. And as you've just said, yeah, he was from Dark City.
Dark City, one of the earlier films we did.
Yep.
You can tell
Proyas.
his cheekbones to it.
Yeah. But they're all really outstanding. I liked the diversity of this cast as well. Like, it seemed like such an interesting cast. It wasn't just the white Americans on holiday, Like, it was a weird mix of cultures and customs and age groups involved in this, wasn't it?
And good old mid-sized sedan, Aaron Pierre, what a unique look he had.
Yeah.
His eyes in particular, and just the
way he held himself.
The way he held himself, he was sort of obviously very muscular arms and shoulders and things, but not, I don't know, he moved with a greater grace than you'd expect.
Yeah.
I sort of got like a mixed feelings from him, which I think was the idea, because he's meant to be this, a bad boy rapper.
Yep.
But in person, he was quite sort of quietly spoken and, mild, and
seemed reasonably
even
rational.
though he was all, cut and stuff, he was kind of small in his movements, and I thought that was really quite good.
Yeah, and he was quite reserved, wasn't he? Which kind of added to that mystery. It was filmed in the Dominican Republic. The beach itself was the Playa El Valle, Samana, something like that. Now, it had a pretty modest budget, I thought, 18 mil, and it's returned globally 90 million, so hugely successful there. That's a good return.
Quadruple. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's a good return on your investment.
I mean, it's no Marvel Cinematic Universe, but...
No, but yeah, 4 times what you invested in it. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's going to work out okay.
Because if you spend 200 million on a Marvel movie and you return a bit, it's the same, isn't it? Like, you return 800 million, it's the same return.
Or 3.3 billion or whatever it is.
Anyway, I'd be pretty happy with those returns, and I think we might see good old M. Night suddenly being a name thrown around again, because that's quite a good profit there. So we like to break our narrative down. We'll do this pretty quickly into some common elements of story that you're probably used to, what considered good story and what the good script writing teachers will tell you about. So that old-fashioned 3-act structure, which is broken down into specific moments or beats. What's the first one? Sorry.
Well, it's called Act 1.
Oh,
surprising.
1 out of 3.
So
the first third.
Yeah, it's the introduction. It will bring in the main characters. It will set up a few of their problems, maybe a few of their desires or initial sort of goals.
Yep.
It will also then show an opening. Like, you'll get either a single image or like a little montage or some sort of a sweeping view, which gives you a feeling of what their lives are like going into the film, so you can contrast that later.
Yep.
But it'll also introduce like themes. And in this film, of course, we see that they come in on their little combi van or whatever, their little minibus, and we get all of that.
Yeah.
We get, quite importantly, towards the end of this, we get what's called the catalyst or the inciting incident. It's the point where you suddenly realize what the film is about. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
At some point, and it's often at 12 minutes.
Yeah.
It can be, some movies are a bit slower burning, it might be 15 minutes, but it's still pretty close in that first bit.
Yeah.
You should be able to go, this film is going to be about X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
It might change, like this movie could change or whatever, but in this film, we certainly get that same point. You get a bit of a debate whether people are going to go into that, how this incident is it going to motivate them?
Yep.
And it does. And they move into Act 2. What do they call Act 2?
Act 2.
Oh.
The 2 out of 3 part. It's quite often the juicier part of the film. It's quite often the trailer of the film to begin with. And we call that like the fun and games. And here the character is going on the journey to basically try at first to just simply resolve that catalyst, aren't they? Like to take that catalyst head on, that journey. And there will be fun and games throughout. If they're like this, stuck on a beach, it's going to be the rules of being stuck on the beach and the problems of being stuck on the beach. Another beach film like Castaway with Tom Hanks, the fun and games is him realizing he's stuck on a beach and how's he going to eat and drink and he can't start a fire and all those kind of things. So that's the fun and games of any film. It's like the trailer. It's maybe not anything too serious, but it's their journey being played out in what we might consider the fun and games. Yeah, if it is a film about a serial killer, well, then the fun and games might be literally people dying, but that's the fun and games of it. That's the cop hunting a serial killer. But we get to a point which is exactly bang in the middle of the film, then they call that the midpoint.
The midpoint?
The middle bit. The midpoint needs to kind of shift a gear, and quite often they do say that's either like a false victory, so it feels like you've had a win, or the main character's had a bit of a win, or things are actually now getting worse again. So it's like getting more serious. So it's no longer fun, whatever we're doing, it's now super serious. And then we kind of go into some analogies like Bad Guys Close In or All Is Lost and The Dark Knight. So basically things are just getting worse and worse and worse for our protagonists. It is important that there is a moment there, some bit before we get to Act 3 where something dies or someone, or even the death symbolically of something. It could be the death of a business, or
the death of a beach full of people.
It could be. And in some films this can be a bit confusing, like this one, to pick it because people did die throughout the whole story.
Yes.
But there still is that moment, and I'll tell you what I thought.
Often
it wasn't.
I think it involves the B story.
Yeah, it quite often does. Yeah, and the B, it could be the death of a relationship, so that could also be the thing. But what happens then, of course, is everything has gone so pear-shaped that the main character, the protagonist, needs to go, oh, can I even go on? Can I climb that last little bit of the mountain? Can I get off this damn beach? And there's like a bit of a lull before the storm, and in that they need to think, I can. And if they do, that goes into
Act 3. Assuming you have a 3-act structure film, not all of them have had that, as we found.
No.
But Act 3 is the finale, of course, and this is where this desire to complete means you've got to come up with a plan and you've got to execute it.
Yeah.
And, of course, we get like a little compression of the whole Act 2 down here, where we have tiny little, maybe a minute of doing the plan successfully, and then you have a midpoint of the plan turning and failing. I haven't actually described this in the same way, but it's just occurred to me now that this kind of, we're getting like a, what do you call it in a musical where you have the reprise, isn't it? Where you sort of have like the main theme sung again at the end.
Yes.
Similar sort of thing. So there's something seems to be turns on the main characters, and that's where they've got to learn and use something from their past or something they've picked up or understood.
Yeah, they bring all those skills back to the table.
Everything in.
Yeah.
And this leads us then to the true finale where victory or total loss occurs, whichever, depending on what sort of film it is. And we get a final image, which it gives us that offset against that opening image, so we can see. It's like, you can imagine the mountain climber gets to the top of the mountain and they look back at the trail they've just walked down, and they can see the home they started in, and now they can see where they are at the top of the hill. Yeah. And that's what we get here. Is we get
the bookends.
We get the bookends. We get the view on how everything is now.
And I mean, so for this film, I've kind of gone through, and most of those beat points that we just gone through, I've actually given them a bit of a point because I felt that this film did it really to the T. It was spot on. So to me, it's like this opening image is a holiday for people who are not connected. So because we open into this van with this family and really not connected. No, it's like really obvious
they're
that
all talking next to each other, past each other.
They are.
And the theme, of course, the movie's called Old.
Yeah.
And they keep talking about, oh, you're too young.
Yeah.
Oh, am I old enough to go scuba diving, yet no, you're too young.
Yeah.
And you're always thinking of the future. Why don't you live in the present? And these sort of themes keep getting thrown at us, which is kind of a bit of confusion because you're thinking, I mean, that's what the theme of the film is, but it's not really necessarily the story.
No, and like
cool.
To me, the theme as well there actually is that moment in the van where the husband kind of goes, because she's on her phone laughing, giggling, whatever, and the mum, and he's like, yeah, are you being present? Like, are you here with us?
Yeah.
And she kind of like shrugs him off as well. So, I mean, there's duality going on there. M. Night is showing us the couple aren't super close, but it's also on that thematic level, it's saying, well, they're not connected, actually. Like, there's an issue with connection here. And I think that is important because as you get older, it's like keeping those connections with people, those friendships, relationships, whatever. And she was ignoring, and she's like chewing up time, isn't she? If you knew that you're going to die as fast as these people are going to die in this film, you wouldn't have left your children to sit in the back seat and not talk to them, right?
Yeah.
You'd be talking to them every second.
Yeah, and you'd be enjoying what's going on around you rather than looking into your phone.
Yes.
Which is nothing wrong with looking into your phone, but maybe sometimes there's other things and people that could do with your attention.
Yeah. So we have this married couple, Guy and Priscilla, going through, we find out through their arguing in this setup that they are actually going through a divorce. The holiday was a bit of a last attempt to kind of try to make the divorce a bit happier for the kids.
Yeah, they wanted to have the holiday before the divorce.
Yeah. And their kids are Madison and Trent. So they take them to this beautiful tropical resort. As I kind of mentioned earlier, I've been on a couple of trips like this. You're in a jungle or you're in this sort of magical resort by a beach or something. It's very secluded. My honeymoon was a bit like that in Seminac as well, where you're off the beaten track and then you're just right on this beach resort on the beach style. So you are kind of excluded from the average normal society, city Western society.
I was exactly the same there on my honeymoon as well. We're on a resort. It was not just secluded from Western society, but it was removed from the major city it was next to. It was kind of a separate oasis, if you like.
Yep. So it's very normal, and that's what this film is sort of like. It seems like it's a peaceful environment. The hotel is this beautiful thing. They get, as Surrey mentioned, there was a little bit of a nod here that they get these specially tailored cocktails when they check in. And as they're doing that, the kids also meet and befriend this resort manager's nephew, Idib, I think his name was.
Yeah.
I believe that's what I wrote down. And so they start to build a little bit of a real kid. And this is what I mean, like there's a few moments, and M. Night is guilty of doing this, and it's quite a cute way he does this. He kind of brings us in on the kid level a bit. The kids have their own little conversation. That scene then on the beach where they go around and they interrogate people for a couple of minutes, like they just ask them really random questions and then move on. I thought it was really clever because it was teaching the audience some information about these characters, because we learned that this guy on the beach is a police officer, and then he's not in the film, I guess, until right at the end.
Right.
Perfect, right? Like, so, but the kids ask these questions as a father, that kids do this kind of crap. They go up to randoms and go, oh, how are you? What do you do for a living, Or what car do you drive or something? Just totally, how much money do you make? And people are like, huh? But so there's kind of all this sort of setup at the start. Also, again, with the kids, like the parents argue and they have this game with I did where he's given them what kids quite often did. I remember I did this as a kid as well.
Spy codes.
Yeah, spy codes. You make up a language system or a symbol system and you put codes in it. And it's a little clever chestnut because when they go on their trip to the beach, I did leaves him a message.
Leaves in his last the one.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, because I thought that one was the let's get ice cream.
Yeah.
Ice cream eating contest, I think, was the
the
message. Yeah. I like this setup because I think one of the real crafts that you get from a good director-writer is this way of you've got 10, 12 minutes before the catalyst.
Yep.
So, and often maybe you need a couple of minutes leading into it.
Yep.
So you've got, say, 10 minutes and you've got to meet
really
all the characters. You've got to get all of the initial conflicts and interactions and relationships hammered out.
Yeah.
And then you've got to maybe make it seem natural at the same time. Like
You're not just spelling it all out.
And I was watching this, and I actually sort of quickly checked to see what minute we're up to.
Yeah.
Because we're following these kids having a little adventure thing, and like the people are sitting talking about having a calcium deficiency, and these sort of things. You sort of go, okay, it's almost like an Agatha Christie at this stage, where you sort of here are all of the suspects.
Yeah.
And they've got to really squeeze that in before the catalyst.
Yes. So to me, the catalyst was the hotel manager coming up and saying to them, "Oh, there's a special beach you need to go to." And
the plane.
We only give it to little people. We only give it to very special people. I was expecting you to say, "Just give me $100 and I'll take you to the very special beach. Your wife will love it."
No, see, that's the difference. The taxi driver outside the resort does that.
Yeah, that's right.
The concierge inside is already paid well enough.
Yeah, that's right. So Ibid does tell them. Does he actually? No, he's just told off, isn't he?
He's told, don't go in there. You can play with those kids.
Yeah, don't play with those kids. Yeah.
They're the wrong kids, wrong sort of kids to play with. Yeah.
And so that's a nice little kind of like, leeway into something's going wrong here.
Yeah, I know. No, I was, at that point, we know the movie's older, and if you've seen any of the trailer at all, you sort of have this idea that something's going to happen on this beach. Yeah. And being the catalyst, okay, here's this sudden, it's not out of the blue, but it's like, here is an interruption in what seems to be the current process of like lounge around the pool, going around swimming.
And they're arguing, the parents are still arguing.
And then you get this interruption, go to the beach.
Yeah.
And he tells off the kid, and you're like, no, not those kids, play with those kids, and then you don't know what's going on there, but you do know this is the movie. The movie now is starting.
Yeah, and so the catalyst there is they're invited to the beach, and that can be a catalyst, basically. Now, the guy that drives the bus to the beach is good old M.
Oh, yes. Sorry, yes. I was going to say, he appears in most of his films.
He appears in all of his films as some sort of character. In this one, he took up he's the bus driver, and then actually we learn later he's also the spy watching it via the camera and stuff. So it was a nice little kudos, and he does the mirror shot, which he's done in a couple other films of himself. He likes to do that reflection in the rearview mirror.
Oh, yes.
I think it's a little acknowledgement to the Hitchcock kind of era, which he's talked about it was a big influence on him as a filmmaker, was Hitchcock, and Hitchcock was always in his movies.
Oh, if you haven't seen any Hitchcock films, you got to go catch yourself.
Yeah, you do.
I mean, some of them you kind of watch and go, oh, yeah. But there's a few of them there that, like, you just are really
brilliant ones.
They're like, you can see where other movies have borrowed from
for sure.
style and some of the twists and things like there's. I won't go into it, but anyway, there was at some stage SBS had a series. SBS being a channel
here locally in Australia.
Like, if you listen to us in the US or somewhere else, which I do know that you do.
Where do I get this SBS?
Well, you can actually stream it live. They have iView, and there's some great international films there. There
is. They play a lot of international films, which is good for the Australian context because the other sort of channels don't. So this debate part, I called "What's wrong with this beach?"
What is wrong with it?
So we kind of get to the beach. It's this beautiful thing. There's this weird man just standing there with a nosebleed, just sitting there, like not doing anything.
I know no one seems to notice him at first.
No one noticed him at first. It also, just the little context before that is we don't just have our main family come on. We do have this other family with the surgeon and the grandma and the dog and this blonde wife that's far younger than the surgeon with the calcium deficiency. So they've all come onto the beach, and it seems like a little bit odd, this beach. Like, considering it's so nice, it just doesn't have that same vibe to it, does it? It sort of seems a bit tonally.
Well, do you know what I noticed here was when they were walking through, we got some slow-mo shots of them going through, almost dreamy-like, and camera shots from inside the crevices as they passed by, almost like they're passing a barrier.
Yeah.
And when I was watching it, I thought, this is just like Picnic at Hanging Rock.
Yes.
And then afterwards I went and read a bit about this film, and M. Night said, I took a lot of inspiration from the Australian film Picnic at Hanging Rock.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen Picnic at Hanging Rock, it's... who did that was Peter Weir?
Peter Weir, yes. That's it. Yeah.
It's a Peter Weir. It's sort of... I don't know how
surreal,
to describe it. It's a sort of a surreal horror drama
coming of age film.
I know. It's like you should watch it. It's quite good. It's very interesting, and you it's one of those movies that you feel a bit awkward and uncomfortable, and by the end you leave it at the end, and you're still thinking to yourself, did I like that film, or does that make me feel?
It's a film that lingers with you. That's the thing.
It's quite good.
Yeah,
and it was clearly inspired here. This going through these rocks, the music, the slow mo.
So a lot of kind of like pull focus, like drawing our attention to the setting, right? Like, and they were awkwardly carrying those baskets and stuff.
Big oversized, heavy.
Big oversized things, and
they said, "Oh no, we do know that children get very hungry."
But anyway, but there was that sort of division, wasn't it? It was like you're walking from here to here.
Yeah, they're passing through a portal.
There's a portal,
And we had a look at, we've seen this in a couple of films.
Yeah.
For example, like Doomsday, where they're in the Doomsday post-apocalyptic Glasgow. Then they pass through the military tunnels.
They did, through that tunnel.
Into King Arthur land.
Yeah, and it totally changes.
And it's the same thing, it's going through the wardrobe to Narnia, isn't it? We've gone through the rocks, and the scenery's changed because they're not surrounded by jungle. Now it's beach and cliffs.
So what's wrong with this beach? What starts to happen is the tone of it doesn't, to me, I've seen lots of beaches. I've been on some of those real tropical ones. We've got some beautiful beaches in Mandurah. It didn't have the nice vibe. And then so what happens pretty rapidly is that the body of mid-sized Sedan, who's this sort of mystery guy just sitting in the rocks with a nosebleed, they suddenly discover this young woman's dead body. He explains that she went swimming and she had, what did she have? MS. And she went swimming right out. She was like I think he describes her like a superwoman swimmer or Olympic athlete. Fantastic. She went right out to sea and then she just disappeared.
Yeah.
And of course the suspicion there is like, oh no, you've probably killed her. So that's
kind of a big leap, but it was done by the surgeon first.
Yeah.
He's like, you killed it, that's kind of a leap. He doesn't really seem very killer.
No, but he also isn't like, it's a great example here of like, he doesn't speak up for himself.
No, he doesn't
defend himself. So that's always like, in a movie that implies a bit of guilt, doesn't it? And what the filmmaker's doing there is it's like toying with us as an audience, kind of saying, well, which side do you think? What's your bias? What's your stereotype?
We're definitely
black man. Are you believe in the black man, or you believe in the surgeon?
The surgeon, he's a white surgeon. He's handsome.
Surgeon.
He's clearly wealthy.
Yeah, he's clearly wealthy. He's clearly smart, and he's putting two and two together for us, So, and then what starts to happen here is the dog dies, and then the grandma dies. And so there is something seriously wrong with this beach. And they kind of realise then in that time, and this to me is perfect to go to the break into two, is we're aging fast. They suddenly kind of like put it together.
We stop seeing the kids. We only see little, off cuts of them. Your shorts don't fit.
Quite fit. Something's a bit wrong.
Going, oh, well, get some of your dad's stuff.
Yeah.
It's a bit weird.
Yeah.
And they're going interviewing the other people on the beach.
Yeah.
The same thing. And we're only getting like
the daughter's a bit older.
We're seeing their hair type of thing.
Yeah, and they're a bit taller and a bit sort of like...
As an audience member, you're sucking suspicious here.
Yeah.
Show me.
What's going on? And wasn't that a great way of shooting it? The filming it. It wasn't just literally... You could have done it with digital special effects. Like, the face is like growing and they're moving and, like a puppy dog kind of that boop, 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 blowing up sort of feeling and stuff. I don't know why I just went doop, 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 like you could see me. But, your arms blowing up bigger quickly. They were just slowly aging. So they were just kind of literally growing. And so the parents were very much... It was also nice that the parents were, oh, your bathers are a bit tight. They're not quite... Okay, well, do you want to... Yeah, just put on a jacket or... Just put something else on, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I guess as parents we do that. But he never chose to show us. And even when there's a moment there, I think all the adults go off. Maybe it's when the grandma dies. And I think they do. And the children you see are eating, devouring, but you don't actually really see them.
No.
Again, you see like shots of legs and arms and they're eating, they're talking about, oh, so hungry, oh. And there's just like arms reaching for food and stuff. So it's really kept as a mystery. It's really nice that. But really the break into two is them realising, hang on, we are aging. Something's going wrong here. There's a comment, the dog just upped and died. My mum's just upped and died. This woman was swimming and she's died. what's going on
and they
here.
go back and find a skeleton.
They do, yeah.
And then the woman Priska, whatever her name is. Yes.
That's right. Yeah,
We're terrible with character names.
We are.
And
Yeah,
actor
Priska.
names. Oh,
Priska.
look, names aren't our strong point.
No.
Priska is a museum curator of antiquities. She's worked with a lot of skeletons,
Fossils and stuff. Yeah.
And she says, it takes 7 years.
Yeah.
It takes 7 years for the skeleton to be shown.
Yeah.
Like, you're going, well, it's not going to be 7 hours, is it?
Yeah.
Or 7 minutes, as this case. Yeah. And that's they sort of
put the maths together and realise,
hold on,
hang on. Yeah. And so we get that great reaction. It's like fun and games to me because it's like, well, let's get off this beach. It's crazy.
And
we're aging. And
then
so
we see the kids as well, don't we?
like they're looking at the kids. The kids are older. They're sort of like teenagers now. Yeah. They're not kids anymore. And then that's right. The parents start saying, they say the surgeon, like, something's wrong with my kids. Like, they've obviously eaten something or they're having a reaction or what's going on wrong here, and check him out. And the surgeon does. He says his daughter has biologically aged.
Yeah, she was 6 years old.
She's 6 years old now.
She's probably 11 or something.
Yeah, or something like that. And with that, one of them also tries to go back to the trail.
Yeah.
And goes into... Who did that first up?
Dad. Guy.
Dad?
Yeah, Guy.
Guy. The guy. He goes back in and he suddenly goes into the cave and we get a bit of a distorted vision and then he's just lying back on the beach.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, you just tumbled backwards and...
Staggered back out here and fell over.
And he can't remember. And it's nicely edited because as an audience, it was the same. We walked into the cave and it's just now we're on the beach. So it kind of is giving us the rules of the game that you can't just go back the way you came.
Yeah, that's where things got a little bit serious. For me, of course, because at this point I was thinking, we're going to get a bit of an aging thing. We're going to have like a bit of a learning. Everyone's going to have their... I learnt that I should have appreciated my mother more because she just died, and the kids, we were so busy arguing about stuff that we missed the kids growing up. Well, that was the sort of story we're going to learn, and then they'll leave the beach and magic will happen. I mean, I kind of couldn't figure out how that would work in this film.
Yeah,
but I still.
Well, you have the hope, right? Like you hope that they're going to get off.
When this guy goes and staggers back out, you go, okay, nope, not like that.
Yes. And what's good here is the B story to me is Guy and Priska.
Yes, their relationship.
Their marriage.
Yes.
And so they have a moment in this, there's a good beat, isn't there, that they literally, at this point, in realising they're stuck on the beach, it's actually like a tense moment that... I'm not sure if it's Guy. I think Guy might be like, we've never connected properly, he kind of confronts her over that, and she dismisses him over, we've got to look after the kids, something's going wrong here, we've got to sort this out. So it's kind of a dismiss thing, but it's a nice beat because where Guy's trying to bring it to the front. But yeah, in this is where we start to get, they can't just walk out of the beach. Charles cuts mid-sized sedan with that pocket knife, and we see that it heals really rapidly.
Yeah,
but also Charles is a little bit.
Yeah, at this
he's
point,
a bit on edge. You're a bit like, oh, I don't know about you.
You've moved fairly quickly from being the sort of level-headed surgeon to cutting a guy.
Yeah,
for no
I think he's
reason.
mentioned that movie that you said before once already, and then now he's cut a guy, and he's just been a little bit thing. We then, Guy and Priska as well, they go back to their marriage. And in this bit, they actually do argue and deny that they're not as close as they should have been in the past. Like they should have been there for each other. They had these moments that they weren't. So here we're kind of, the relationship is moving a bit because they're now having an intimate moment of realising
it's that episode you see in every sitcom or TV series where
we didn't look after our relationship.
Where the couple gets stuck in a car in a blizzard, and so now they're forced to work it out over before they get rescued.
Now, in terms of the camera work, all through this, especially this fun and games bit, you notice it was the same with the kids. We were kind of not seeing stuff, and likewise here, we were starting to have the camera kind of was like, they were having their argument, but the camera was like panning away from them. So they're the focus. They are the focus, but it's doing that to kind of show us that in the background, the kids are now a bit older again, and also Charles is kind of off.
And you got a lot of...
being a bit suspicious. And there was this great moment, I remember, when they were having this little argument that we kind of just kept seeing what the other characters were doing.
Yeah, we got a real feeling of almost like a single shot movie.
Yeah, and also I think it was showing us that each character was like dealing with it and aging in a weird way, and also the ominous feeling of it. And they were definitely not, like in another film you could have gone, let's work together, guys, we're going to get off this beach together. It felt like they were quite separate and alone almost.
Yeah, the psychologist woman kept trying to use her craft to get everyone to come together and talk and work it out, but no one was all that interested. And it certainly got broken then by the tumour incident. Yeah. Where the little tumour, totally benign. Oh no, now it's just expanding and growing.
It does grow so rapidly, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh, and this scene of cutting it out was kind of like the... okay, you wanted some fun and games. Yeah. Here it is. Like, here's the real bit. Yeah, like they cut and then it heals over. Yeah. He cuts again, it heals over. Yeah. And then they go, well, let's get our fingers in there and hold it open. You think, how horrifying is that? And they do. They literally cut and they're having to continually hold this flesh apart. Mm. And he pulls it out. He stops and goes, that movie. He talks about the movie. But then he gets this thing and he goes, oh my God, look at this. The size of a cantaloupe. Yeah. And he's like, seems a bit jovial about it.
Yes, yeah.
But he
and the nurse was actually, it was one of those interesting things, like even though he was the surgeon and he took it seriously with the cutting and everything, it was almost like the nurse took care of it, and again, that was that kind of showing that Charles I think he'd lost it a little bit more.
I think also nurses probably do this.
They do,
because you probably got like a surgeon who's been up for 18 hours. Yeah. Doing the physical motions, but maybe the decision-making process, what's the next thing I do? Yeah. The nurse goes, perhaps we should, mop up some of this blood. Yeah, yeah. Do you want some suction? Clamp it over. Do you want some clamp?
We do need that.
Yeah, yes, that is correct. That's right. Yes. So if you're a nurse, let us know. Is that what you do?
But he brings it out and heals it up, and it does scar up really rapidly, and she comes back.
Very, very. I mean, that's an advantage of this beach, really, isn't it? Is that her recovery was very quick.
Yes. It was a pretty disturbing scene, that one. If you're someone that's a bit... I mean, for me, it was fine. I could handle it, but it was a tense scene.
Oh, they're getting their fingers right in there.
Their fingers are right in there. The way the cut happens, even then you get a shot of the tumour. It's all pretty gruesome. So if you're someone that's a bit squeamish, you might find it a bit too brutal. But, yeah, it really added, as I said earlier, there you go. Turn that screwdriver. The tumour's going to grow in minutes. You're going to have to cut it out or not cut it out. She's going to die, but she survives. And the interesting thing then is the connection after that is that's why she says like, they had tried these different medicines and she wasn't feeling very proactive about her survival rate, was she? No. So it's interesting. So we're getting kind of told about their medical, and I think this is when they're realising that all of them maybe have some sort of medical condition, isn't it? It's around about here.
Yeah, because it's the rot, the decayed corpse and stuff. And mid-size, he says, it just sort of seemed like I wanted to get away. I've got this blood clotting issue. Yeah, I just wanted a chance to get away and maybe deal with it. Mm. And then I met this woman. She had MS, and we just sort of connected over this. Yeah, and we're here.
And Guy is a insurance actuary, and he kind of does the maths, and he goes, there's no way that all of us could be here on the beach at the same time with medical conditions.
These medical conditions combination is pretty rare.
Is very rare, yeah.
Yeah. And they figure it. But there's a little bit of fun and games here that the other major one, so here's the one is, okay, you got a tumour. Oh, it's grown big with a surgery. Yeah. That's kind of like, if you're aging really fast, how's that going to work out? The other one, of course, is you got the two kids.
Yeah, well, they're no longer kids.
They started for 6-year-olds. Yeah. And they've grown, obviously, into adolescents. Yeah. And we see bits of them, they're eating, and they're in the tent giggling and laughing. Yeah. And then... it's after this surgery scene, I think, isn't it? Like the shot is like, where are the kids? And they're like, they're in the tent, and they kind of hopped out of the tent, laughing and smiling, and her belly's getting bigger, and she's growing.
And it was a great thing because we had seen them in the tent giggling, and we saw them get out, and they're like, and then as they come towards the adults, her belly is bigger. So we know, in the tent they had sex.
I said, we're just playing around. Because remember, they're 6-year-olds.
Yeah.
And so their physical and brains and everything have all changed. Their hormones and everything have all changed. But they didn't gain knowledge.
No. And I think in the tent, she says something like, she goes, don't you feel like the way we look at the world's really different now? And so that's like a real kind of teenager.
That's a real teenager thing to say, isn't it?
The world's all around us. It's different. Anyway, and then very quickly they're doing the maths and her belly's getting bigger and bigger. She's going into labour.
It's like that quick. Geez, if it's half an hour for a year, then it's like 20 minutes she's going to give birth.
And again, this is done with camera work really cleverly, because as the adults are trying to deal with, oh my God, you just had sex. Oh my God, she's pregnant. Oh my God, she's about to have a baby. The camera kind of flows with that tension.
Yes.
And as the action, like she goes down to give birth, the parents are taking the son. They're like, the dad's going, you didn't realize what you had sex, but I didn't have the chance to tell you that. And the camera kind of pans away from them and comes, and it's a very motionful moment. I really liked this from a filmic point of view, because you had all this action going on, but he wasn't actually closing in on the action. He was actually keeping us at a distance from the action. And I think it was because it was all just, the idea was it was all happening so rapidly. And by the time they get over one tension, they've come back around. She's had the baby. We hear the baby cry, and the psychologist has kind of helped deliver that, puts it down on the towel. The baby's dead.
Yeah. Died
and
of
inattention.
That's it. Yeah, basically. Yeah, I think the nurse at this place, he says, like where our cells are all aging at a speed, and babies need a lot of like nutrition and a lot of,
really quick,
lot of care early on.
Yeah.
And it just was too fast.
You would have had to have it on the tit straight away, going for the milk. It
wouldn't have been able to consume enough food, basically.
No, that's right.
So it died almost immediately, and that's that's a heartbreaking moment.
It was.
Son goes, what's his name? Trevor or
Trent.
Trevor, we'll call him Trevor.
Yeah.
Trent, he gets really upset, and it's like it's all massively compressed. I'm going to be a dad. Oh no, it's broken.
And it turns to like him and Cara, I think it is the girl that gave birth. Like as he goes and he takes it and he has a moment with it, it's like turning to dust.
Yeah, it turns to ash.
Like you hear the bones in the towel. Like it's really interesting that. I really liked that because kind of like had this baby in his arms under a towel. You could see the shape, and then starts crunching and turning to, as he puts it down, it's already dust.
So this is where we get to the midpoint. I think the death of the baby, because that was quite a. Up to then, you've had some tension and bits and pieces, but it's still kind of that exploring. The confrontation with Midsize where he gets cut and he heals. That's sort of exploring this fun and games. This is now suddenly you realise what the bad consequences are.
Yeah.
Okay, dead dog, dead baby. The baby's gone. It's turned to dust and that's how quick it is. Yeah. You realise we're all going to turn to dust.
And they find, to me, just before the midpoint, they find the notebooks and the spoons and stuff. So it proves that people have been there before and not gotten off the beach.
Yeah.
So it's like you're doomed. Do you know what I mean? Like, so to me, that's a perfect, like, things are now worse, and they do. Trent notice like a shimmering, shining up on the top, and it does. It looks like something's watching, and he says, "Oh, there's a camera watching us, or someone's up there," and they kind of go, "Who would want to watch this?" But it does. It indicates that there's something bigger at play. So the bad guys are closing in. After that, Charles' schizophrenia gets worse, and he kills Midsize.
Yeah,
he just goes mental on him, doesn't he?
Okay. Yes. I guess that would be the description. He goes, ape bananas.
He goes, ape bananas.
I think he just totally loses the plot. And so his original suspicions and fear, which I think was just not out of place for a person in his position, might well have racist biases. But when you combine that then with this rapidly accelerating loss of the grip on reality and what parts are real, what's not. He starts thinking, you're trying to get me. Is the paranoia, and he's got that knife. As I said, why did he bring this knife? That's just sort of indicator of
fear.
His original fear. He was unsure. And we heard him talking a bit about his fears, also about losing his license and so on. Kills Midsize. Not so nice.
No, it was really nasty. I didn't like that because by then I'd sort of really warmed up to Midsize. So I was So to me, that's like, yeah, we're going down this nasty path, and basically that's what happens. The bad guys close in. We kind of like, we have to get off this beach, basically. Like, so before it's like, how do we get off this beach? And we have all those fun and games. Now it's like, we got to get off this beach. Like, we're all getting older, and it's not looking good. So Jaron, the nurse, he decides. I found that this was a bit kind of silly, but he decided like, oh, I'm going to go swim this. I used to be in the swimming team.
Yeah,
because he suggested that earlier, and he said no, and now he's older, and I'm like, you'd be so much weaker.
Yeah, I want to say, what makes you think you're not going to pass out? And if you pass out in the water, you'll just drown like that girl.
Yeah. And that's literally what does actually happen to him. Cara, which you mentioned that scene before, that's a great scene. So she decides to descend up the cliff face. And that was shot so well. It reminded me of old Alfred Hitchcock. There's North by Northwest, which at the end of that, we're on Mount Rushmore. Yeah. So we're on the edge of this sort of big mountain. There's climbing up the mountain as the bad guy tries to shoot, I think, is it Gary, what's his name? Clark Kent. Gary, that old actor that's been in 100 bloody Hitchcock movies.
Gaza. We just call him
Gaza. Yeah. Correct me. Tell me who that is. I can't remember. See, names always go past me. Gary Grant, I think it is. Anyway, so they're climbing up Mount Rushmore. Cary Grant. There you go. Anyway, they're, or as we call it in Australia, Gary. Gary. But yeah, there's a similarity here. The camera's rotating like it's on a bloody swinging rope as she's clinging there. And there is that lovely beat of her and everyone below is like, get back down, Gertie, you're not going to make it. And then they're like, oh, actually, she might make it. Just reach for that ledge. Get there.
Yeah, if you can just get to that ledge.
There is. And then the camera stops being with her and we're down at the bottom and they're all looking up and there's that beat of... And the camera looks up at her. It's a really, showing how high she is. And she's like stopped. And we presume like swimming out, she's passed out the magicalness of the rock or whatever it is. And then she just, and bang.
Balls. Yeah.
And it's a really it's a real terrifying death, that one, I think. So, and Patricia, this is where she was the epileptic that we knew early in the film. Suddenly she's having a seizure on the beach.
Yeah, multiple seizure after seizure.
Yeah, seizure, and she's older as well now, so it's a fatal seizure. She dies, and that scene you were mentioning before, this crystal hypoglycemia results. Calcemia, that's it. Yeah, glycemia's in the eyes, I think, isn't it? Glaucoma. Yeah. So yeah, and there's such a horrific scene of her being kind of this. She's humpbacked, horrible thing in the cliff.
It's like a mountain cave witch or something.
Yeah.
Like she's screeching at the kids incomprehensibly about how. God knows what she's. Cara, her child has died or something.
Yeah, and Guy, in all this kind of chaos, there's a moment where Guy, which I really liked, he looks and the camera looks at his wife and she's fuzzy, and he's like, "Oh no!" And you see it in the eyes, like the shot back of Guy is that it's like a fuzzy eye. He's got cataracts, which is a simple thing to fix in modern society, but not on this beach.
Not on a beach when you're aging at this point.
And he's aging. He's like, oh dear.
And he gets attacked by Charles. And finally,
they have that fight, and fight Charles off.
Gets a rusty knife.
Yeah.
A little scientific inaccuracy here. Rust is not poisonous.
Oh, okay.
No, the tetanus.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Tetanus is a bacteria that lives in rust.
Right.
Rust itself, iron oxide, is what you got in your bloodstream.
So it's actually tetanus that would have killed him, right?
It would have been tetanus that did him in. If she's referencing rust itself is not a problem. It's only when it's got tetanus on it.
Do you know what? I didn't question it. I thought it was a great way for him to die, because by then he was the bad guy, really, wasn't he? And yeah, Charles dies that way. So... yeah, we've had pretty nasty, building up of all these people trying to get off and
calm down a bit. Mind you, I just want to bring this up because this is one of those Titanic moments, where they sort of say, could they both floated successfully and all the rest of it? And at some point, is it Jamie or Jerry, the nurse?
Yeah,
he says, okay, so we can't get through the cave because it basically our brains can't deal with the flux of time happening. He says, but if you crawled through slowly a little bit, it'd be like decompression.
Yeah.
And it would take 6 or 8 hours maybe. But who wants to lose 20 years of their life doing that?
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, Why? You've got something better to do?
That's right. I know, I had that same thought.
This will get you off.
Yeah.
And you've got no other reason to believe that you have any better way of
Yeah.
doing it.
And
yes, I would.
I must
would
admit,
start.
I agree with what you had thought there. And I also thought, but why don't they all just do that? Like together? Because then you're not really wasting your life if you're just all together kind of creeping through this cave.
Yeah. I mean, okay, sure. I would be a 60-something-year-old
Yeah.
chappie.
But then you're out and you survive. You're alive.
But I'd be out and around.
Yeah.
But I think at that point, they weren't convinced
That's it,
that
yeah.
it was 100%.
Do or die, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
the stakes
the thing
weren't
is,
raised.
when they realised it was, they didn't bring this back up
Yeah.
again. He said, instead, I'm going to swim.
Yeah.
Somehow that will
Swim past the
work.
rocks and yeah. Yeah. You make a good point there, and it does raise that as a good question. Did you notice that when you watched this film? So here the B story comes back in right on the dark night of the cell to me, which is
It's a
Guy
lovely
and
moment, I think. where we have the
Priska
last
are
family.
now much older, and the story has developed. So they've gone from, like you said, they're stuck in a car in an episode. They've basically done that on their beats. They were fighting on the bridge of divorce, ignoring each other. Guy kind of raised it the first time. She ignored it. The second beat in the Fun and Games, they actually argue about it, but it's more of a revealing discussion about their actual feelings. I didn't mention it, but then there's a moment there where she says she was actually cheating on him, and then he reveals he knew all along, but he wanted to stay with her. So you get to this point, which is right, we've had all these deaths and the nasty attack of Charles, and there's kind of a lull point here where they are sitting by the fire, two old people, and they've survived all this together. And they're basically, he says, what were we fighting about earlier today? And she's like, I don't even remember now. And, to me, that was like, that was the bookend of way back on that van that he's like, hello, why aren't you connecting with us? And she was on her phone.
You're
so
not
she was,
present,
whereas
here
here they were present with each other.
And he said, oh, I really like this beat.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
And he basically carks it and dies,
Feels
doesn't he?
over.
And then it's again shot really well because the kids grab him and they're like, Dad, and he's dead. We don't see that. Priska gets up to sort of walk to the beach, and as she walks down to the beach, what does she do? She washes something or something, and then the camera goes back, so we've left her out of shot now, and then the kids are like, Mum, and the camera then swings back onto her, and she's dead.
Yeah, she stumbles back. And
She sort of falls over. And it's a really nice way of kind of, and he had done that earlier. It was exactly the same pan movements.
Like I said, so much of this film, I got that feeling of a one-shot scene.
Yeah,
like there's a lot of, rather than cutting between cameras to
it's a lot
show different
slower.
angles, it's just like you're floating through all of the action all at once.
Yeah.
Because I think when you do cut between cameras to spotlight each bit of action or each dialogue, it does feel a bit sort of separated and discontinuous.
Yeah,
Whereas
but
this way, by having it floating around while they're arguing, the other thing is simultaneously happening. You can't do that with a cut because a cut is sequential.
So watch the opening 15 minutes of the film, The Player, because that's the longest running shot out of Hollywood, like really well documented. Lots of people talk about it. Tim Robbins is in that as a Hollywood producer. And in that scene, they even have two of the characters, like Hollywood guys, are going, oh, did you watch this particular film by Robert Altman where there's a 10-minute known, they even like comment on it. And they're saying, yeah, MTV's the reason why we've got cut, like it's the modern day cut, like and it is cutting, as you know, your age as well, same as me. You go back to the 70s, 60s, there is a lot more of this. Alfred Hitchcock, there's a lot more slow
We looked at
editing.
that in those couple of those older films, like Battle Beyond the Stars.
There'll be longer shots.
Where they sort of had more steady cameras. It was more like filming a play on screen.
Yeah. But it was just, shots were longer. Zooms are longer. They don't do zooms anymore. No one does a zoom anymore. Zoom in, zoom out. They're too long, too slow, too boring. Inattention of our audience spans.
Pardon what? Oh, sorry, I lost track of what you're
That's
talking
right. They're dead. The kids, it's kind of then morning, and the kids are, to me, they're older again. They're actually older again now, aren't they?
They're middle-aged now.
They're middle-aged. And so Trent and what's her name? Max?
Maddox,
Maddox, that's it. And they're sitting there and it's very hopeless, I think. And then they're basically, so to me, this is right before the perfect example of breaking into three, because they're like, how much time and I think she says, well, by 6 o'clock we'll probably be dead.
Yeah.
And so it's sunrise, so you're sort of in your brain, you're like, it's about 10 hours, whatever, 12 hours to sun they've got of the day, and then they will be too old. They'll be like their parents. And they're like, well, should we try? And they go, well, let's build a sandcastle.
Yeah.
And so it's like that real, like, in a way, as an audience, you're like, what? You're going to waste time building a sandcastle? Yeah. But in a way, isn't that the theme of the film? Like being present, being in the moment, actually enjoying life.
Hanging out with your sister.
Hanging out with your sister. And so that's what they do. And whilst they're doing that, it gives him the clarity to realise, I had this message from Ibid.
Yeah, I want to find out what he said.
I should, and she's like, well, you should find out. I never decoded it, and so he goes and decodes it. She builds the sandcastle. And it's a really cryptic message on its own, but isn't it? It's like, my uncle doesn't like the coral or something.
And the coral was pointed out earlier.
Like we could see out in the ocean there was this reef and there was weird coral and so then they are like, well, should we swim to it?
Yeah, well, because they're talking about the like protection from X-rays, like the radiologists, they have like a special vest on. And maybe we could make something put over our heads to get out, like a tinfoil hat. Yeah. And I thought, well, you got all that cutlery there. I mean, I suppose you could try.
Yeah.
But then, they go to investigate. Basically, I think they just went, well, he hates the coral.
Yeah. There must be something about the coral.
Can we, like we use a coral, and they go over there and, of course, discover that there's a passage. Yeah,
there's a passage under the reef.
Yes, and down they go swimming in there. And
there's a great moment she gets... but the thing is that's... We can get off the beach. Yes. Like this is a good example of breaking into three, as in we've got a plan. We've got a new plan. People have tried climbing. People have tried swimming before. Yeah. Hasn't worked. Can't go through the caves. We've only got X amount of time left. Should we try this coral?
They got their new piece of information.
And they'd had that moment of clarity, hadn't they, where they decided, hey, let's just build a sandcastle. Let's not fight this anymore. And that's quite often a really good example of characters deciding to go, well, all right.
It's kind of demonstrating their growth, I guess,
as kids to adults.
as the family, the overall theme growth, which is that.
So they swim under this coral. She gets stuck, which is a great, building the tension. We see M. Night being the creepy perv up at the top, filming them. He's watched them go under the water, and a significant amount of time has gone by and they haven't come up.
Yes.
And so he's like, ugh, they're bloody dead.
Yeah, another lot have gone to the
Another lot of dead.
And...
They've tried to go to the coral and they haven't made it. So he packs up his gear and we follow him. We don't follow them anymore. And that's a nice piece of sort of narrative storytelling, isn't it?
Well,
that we forget the people on the beach.
You've got that tragedy of them getting stuck and you go, they're all dead.
They're all dead, yeah.
But then we have this new mystery unraveling.
Yeah.
Like, where's this guy going? What was he doing? Like, he had all... Yeah. He wasn't just watching them. He was filming them and he had computers and he was taking information, readings.
And like you're thinking, is there going to be some sort of magical unwind button?
Yeah.
Are they going to go, oh, they're dead, and he goes back and they push a button and they're all actually like they weren't real. It was a computer simulation. They were actually in a hospital all along, and it was all in their minds.
Or maybe the passing through those rocks actually induces massive hallucination.
Yeah,
which
that's
seems
right.
to be like this all the time.
Yeah, so they're not actually dead. They're just lying in their beds or whatever at the hotel. Like, are they going to just wake up in their hotel beds, sort of thing? And anyway, he goes in, and this is where we get the concierge explaining, well, this case study was successful because of the epilepsy. She survived X amount of years without having a seizure that can go straight out to market, basically.
And I like to see that they're sitting there with the special cocktail glasses and like the weird plants and things that were in the cocktail glass, and there's scientists there with droppers, measuring out careful dosages into these things. While he's talking about it. So, you start piecing these things together. Yeah. And then it's at the very bit where, at the end where the new lot of people turn up and she comes out, the waitress woman, scientist.
It's repeat of the start.
Cocktails made specially for you, designed individually for you, based on that. You go, that's what that meant.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so we're sort of also then it's like, oh God, this is just on a loop, right? Like more people are going to come, they're going to get stuck. It's a total loop. And
we get that same sort of weird back shot where you don't see
the
Trent properly, but he hands the notebook to the police officer.
Yeah, which is, and it says, you're a police officer. And the guy's like, yeah, I am. You know, and we know him from the start. And then he's making some phone calls. You see the police officer making some phone calls as they're welcoming this new family. And then with that, he's arresting them, isn't he? He's claiming that, they're
and we do nicely get a flashback to they got free of the coral and they found like a little gap.
Yeah,
in
the
the
reef.
Stick their head up in and take
do a little
breaths.
breath. Yeah. And keep swimming.
And of course, we're talking about symbology. So we've got them passing through another passage, like a trial, a gauntlet they've got to pass.
Yeah.
But also, when they come up out of the water, you'll notice that Trent comes up out of the water on his own initially, and then we see Maddox.
Yes.
So it's again that life, death, other world, spirit world.
Yeah.
Sort of, he's left the life of the beach, that world, and he's been reborn back into the new world, having grown up and learnt something.
Yeah, and so there's this slow reveal, but a quick kind of climax of like arresting those people at the resort and the scientists sort of thing. And then we see Trent and Maddox, and it's nice because they come on the helicopter and back to the beach. And I was kind of like, don't bloody cross the portal line.
Don't cross that line.
I was like, is there going to be like one of those sort of things that at the end they just the helicopter crashes and but they didn't. The helicopter deliberately turns away and we're just left with that image of the beach.
Terrifying.
Yeah, which is great. So go check out Old. It's a really interesting science fiction, mystery thriller with a twist. As all
go check, you've already watched it, of course, because we warned you that we spoiled the whole thing.
Yeah.
But maybe this time you're going to pay attention to the way the camera's moving, some of the symbols of passing into new worlds, water, different angles. I know there's a number of times where the camera's starting on the ground, rotates a little bit, goes, and so that's something's gone a bit funny.
Yeah.
When the camera goes onto an angle, you get that.
Yeah, the oblique angle means danger kind of idea.
Yeah, something's going on.
So let us know what you thought about the film, what you thought about our thoughts on the film. Did we get it right? Did we get it wrong? Where are you putting this on your ladder? We do a ladder, folks, to kind of indicate just like an order of watching all of the science fictions. This is episode 78, so we've got 78 science fiction films if you've been following along. How is your ladder looking? Mine's getting longer and longer.
It's going to be I'm thinking of actually breaking mine into separate parts.
Multiple ladders.
Yeah, it's got to be. We've got 70 odd on there.
Yeah, we might have to do a rejig of it all. But where are you putting it?
I've put it in between the platform and the Discovery.
Okay.
And
right.
This time I was going for, because the three of them explore philosophical concepts and other worlds.
Yes.
The platform has moving from this bureaucratic future world into the world of the platform. And then at the end, there's kind of this question of, did he go to hell? Did he die? Did he
I forgot about the platform. That was so good.
It was pretty good. And the Discovery, of course, about afterlives, repeating these lives. Yeah.
Yeah, the platform was a cool movie.
So if you're in that mood, this would be a triumvirate trilogy.
And I think I went about it in a similar thinking. Just it ended up between two different films, but my thinking again was characters being placed in a bit of an unusual setting and sort of exploring those other ones. So here I put it in between Other Life, the West Australian film, and Brother from Another Planet. So I felt like all of these films, again, if you watched as a trilogy, it's like Other Life, again, she wakes up not really knowing what's happened to her life and why she is the way she is. She's been implanted in that.
There was another WA director called Ben.
Yeah, it was.
Ben C. Lucas.
I know, we have a few different Ben filmmakers around the place, don't we? But yeah, so I thought that's kind of the main character lives out another world. We've got this one, Old, we're on the beach, we're stuck, we're getting old. And then even the Brother from Another Planet, a lot of that was a guy, going around New York, not getting what the hell New York was all about. So,
and weren't those little character scenes and sequences fantastic?
They were, and those sold the agents, the agents, like the Men in Black kind of guys, which I reckon must have been homaged in Men in Black. So, yeah, I think all those three, they're deeper thinking films, and these are quite, analogies for the characters to play out, like what-if scenarios.
Oh, yeah.
What if an alien from another planet comes? What if you were getting old? What if you were implanted with another memory? That to me is, they're all what-if films. So where is it on your ladder? What would you suggest the films that we've looked at? Where should old go in? Let us know. Hit us up on the socials and let us know.
Maybe you could even set up, like, these sorts of things. You could do a little screening party with your science fiction film buddies.
Let us know how that goes. Take some photos, some selfies. Hit us up with it.
Friend of the podcast does that every Christmas so far. We did the Daleks before, and with Brother from Another Planet the year before. Yeah. So it's
grab a group of mates together, get some food, sit down and watch 3 films in a row.
Yeah, we pick a theme, go to the ladder, find these trilogies we put together.
That would be fantastic. Now, I imagine you're going to talk about aging here in some way. So much of society wants to go the other way that this film suggests, wants to get younger. All the skin creams and the moisturisers
we're
and the
all
anti-aging.
Stuck as reverse Benjamin Buttons.
That's right. I know. This is the opposite of Benjamin Button. Is Benjamin Button a science fiction?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean,
I don't know.
Kinda
maybe
is.
I know.
Let us know.
Let us know.
Science of aging, because this question is, every now and then you'll get someone stand up and say, a child has already been born who will be the first one to live to 1,000 or something or other. These statements are made fairly regularly, and it's entirely...
We don't seem to be getting there, do we?
It's entirely possible. I keep getting told that fusion, economically viable fusion energy is just 5 to 10 years away. It's been 5 to 10 years away for quite some time now. Eventually, it may happen, but
we do, like in the West, have a aging population that is getting older and older. Like more and more people are getting older.
Let's not talk about Japan.
No,
Japan has. There was an island where the youngest person is 60 or something like that. Because
right.
Everyone else has left. It's only the parents that are left there, and no new people are turning up. So they're sort of basically they reckon about 20, 25, 30 years there will be no population on this island because no one's going there.
Bizarre.
Yeah. Anyway, but the science of aging we are always trying to find, because let's face it, the holy grail of medicine would be immortality. I mean, if we're going to come up with any cures, like we come up with antibiotics, and that has been a major benefit. We spoke earlier about the smallpox. Defeating smallpox was like a really big step.
On a previous episode.
Yep. Yeah, and this is really just small steps towards immortality, because the ultimate medicine would be to not age, because most diseases or chronic ailments that we don't have good treatments for are due to age.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you get a virus, we've got antivirals, we can, filter your blood through artificial kidneys. There's all manner of things that we can try. We can even use, stem cell immuno upregulation and so forth. Like, so there's some amazing sort of techniques that have and can be used. I
guess there's a question here, isn't there? Because it's always like with medicine, treatment versus
prevention.
Prevention,
yes.
That was the word.
And age. By not being aged, like the percentage of 20-year-olds who are suffering from heart disease, extremely low.
Yeah.
It does happen.
Yep.
But it's, that's like super bad luck if that's the case, really.
Yeah.
The percentage of 98-year-olds suffering heart failure, very high.
Yeah.
And that's not through bad lifestyles, it's because you've lived so long. But this is the question, though, that has to be asked, and there's a lot of investigation into it. So there's kind of two broad ideas of how aging works, and there's no unified theory which explains it all.
Yeah.
So we have a few of those in science, like we've got relativity, general relativity, special relativity, we've got quantum theory. They all explain things very well up to a certain point, and they each explain something slightly different. But there's trying to find a crossover where they explains everything we haven't found. And same with aging. So we've got one side of the argument, one side of the investigation is that we are pre-programmed to die. Basically, our lifespan is kind of part of our life cycle.
Yeah.
So the same processes which determine that we go from a single fertilized egg through to multiple cells to being a small embryo into an adult
Yeah.
is all like the aging process is just a continuation of all of these pre-existing biological functions.
Yeah, right.
Until we die. And you can point to, for example, dogs. They have a lifespan of maybe 10 years. My dog lasted 13 and a half years-ish. And from his perspective, he was born and came along to this very loving family. And then his entire lifespan, we didn't age.
Yeah.
I mean, my kids sort of grew up a little bit, but, you know, my wife and I, from his perspective, basically stayed almost the same. You know, I've got a couple more wrinkles, a couple more grey hairs, but otherwise, I'm still just as healthy and fit as I was 13 and a half years ago. Relatively speaking, compared to my poor old dog, who grew up, was very fast, very strong. About 10 years, he started slowing down a bit.
Yeah.
His 12th and 13th year, his legs were not quite working right. His breathing was a bit harder. And finally, he passed away.
Yeah.
All in the span. And that's just like a tiny sliver of my lifespan.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it clearly goes to show that there's nothing stopping animals from living different lifespans. But the programmed idea is that, well, dogs' biology is just such that they grow really fast into maturity, and then they also die very fast.
And I think that's why it was clever to put a dog in the film, wasn't it? That you knew as soon as the audience, knowing that, okay, these people are probably on this sort of...
Yeah.
We don't know the mechanics yet, but there's a dog. That dog's going to be the first thing to go.
That's a proverbial canary.
Yeah, it is. It's the canary in the coal mine, isn't it?
And the other side of the equation, though, says, okay, it's not pre-programmed so much as you just run out of repair mechanism.
Right.
And damage, accumulated damage eventually overwhelms your body.
Yeah.
So as you as time goes by, you're exposed to just, things that want to stop life. You know, UV radiation, free radicals from, carbohydrate metabolism.
Yeah.
Just bumping your toe on the door too many times,
Illnesses.
Random viruses.
Yeah.
Radiation, whatever, it just slowly just breaks apart things, part of your DNA and part of your other mechanisms. Some of your organs then, as a result, don't operate as effectively, which means they don't produce the other repair mechanism, and becomes this cascading thing until essentially at some point it's inevitable that something's going to fail.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of what's going to fail first. Yeah. And this is why diseases start getting at you more, because your immune system starts falling apart. Like, it just doesn't respond as fast. You don't heal as fast.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's the 2-1. So to approach that, of course, is if you sort of say we have it pre-programmed in us, what that would imply, and there's strong evidence to say this is true, that we have cells will multiply X number of times before they just stop.
Yeah. And
once all of your cells just stop, well, that's the end of it. And that's about 120-ish years.
Right.
Give or take. The oldest woman, Jean Clement, was 122 and 175 days or something.
Okay.
She didn't live a particularly healthy lifestyle. She just lived her span and died.
Yeah.
But what that means is if we want to live forever or greatly increase our lifespans, we have to fundamentally change our biology. So that either means replacing parts of us with artificial componentry. And
robotics.
That doesn't have to be robotics. It could be lab grown.
No, I want robotics.
Synthetic organs, or it means we have to, change our DNA, like modify it, and you can do that with, a modified measles virus, if you were to believe the
I Am Legend,
the I Am Legend movie. But the same sort of thing is like you get a retrovirus, introduce some particular DNA which we know works. And then you could essentially infect yourself with an anti-aging illness. So you put some immunosuppressants so you don't fight this virus off.
Yeah, right.
And then you get totally infected by this virus, and it would go through and, change you to a younger version of you.
Yeah, right.
Maybe. That might be one way you could do it. But the other side, which is to say accumulated damage, what that means is that the view would be we have effectively unlimited lifespans. It's just that our repair mechanisms are insufficient. So that would mean that it would be possible to that age in this case could be viewed as a disease as opposed to a physical limitation.
Yep.
Which would require physical modification. We have a disease which we could cure with drugs or therapies of minerals, vitamins, supplements, whatever, to reduce this, or maybe wearing certain we already have sunscreen, for example. That reduces the aging of our skin by keeping the UV light off us. We could wear special clothing or apparatus which protects our bodies.
And maybe there'd be a way to shoot, a supplement into your body that would kickstart the repair mechanisms quicker or something.
And this brings me nicely to a very interesting coincidence. Is it a coincidence? I don't know. So
a coincidink?
So in 2015, we have this fellow, Michael Cantor.
Good old Cantor.
So he was prescribed metformin for pre-diabetes. So metformin is a drug that is given to people with approaching type 2 diabetes.
Good old metformin.
Or early type 2 diabetes. And it increases insulin sensitivity so that the insulin that you are producing gets used better.
Right. Okay.
And he actually improved his lifestyle to the point where he no longer required it.
Okay.
So it's possible, if you haven't actually hit that diabetes, dead
threshold
wall,
yeah,
where your insulin just stops working, you're burnt out, basically.
Yeah.
So that's probably pre-diabetes and that's a spectrum. You can reverse that before you hit your point of no return, and he managed to do that, which is good news for him.
Yep.
But he'd also been hearing about some interesting studies showing that metformin was showing improved longevity.
Right.
And he went, "Oh, please, doctor, may I stay on metformin for this purpose?" And the doctor kind of said, and I don't know the exact laws and so forth, but obviously it was allowed.
Yeah.
He said, "Okay,
let's trial it for a while."
It's a drug that's been used for a long time. It's well understood. Side effects are known. He was not having any problems with it. So they said, yes, you can keep doing it.
Yep.
So he kept going on, and so is his wife.
Yep.
They're an ongoing experiment. So that's 7 years ago.
Still alive? Now they're Benjamin Button. They're a bit younger.
Well, they're 69 now, so not surprising they'd still be alive, considering average lifespan is 75 to 76-ish across everyone. Yeah, so they've been there's more research going into this metformin, saying they don't know why it would increase life, but people on metformin have lower mortality. So this is even people with type 2 diabetes have, they looked at the cohorts in their studies as they're doing this, and they find they have lower mortality from all causes while on metformin.
Yeah.
And people without diabetes also.
Yeah, right.
So they're going, well, it seems to somehow prevent a number of these sort of age-related diseases. It's too early to know at the moment, but could metformin or some similar thing, and metformin is derived from a natural root called something, I can't remember. My notes, this is a problem. I always get here and my notes are sort of on the screen and hard to look, but it's like a root that's been used since medieval times as a medicine, and they've derived this metformin from it, and so it's been used for a long time, well understood. But could it indeed help with some of these things?
Yeah,
and it could do, because other research done in the UK has found there's a relationship between the insulin and IGF, which is the insulin-like growth factor, or its lack thereof, and improved aging signals. Aging signals. So if you get a person who has got a long-term low IGF, this insulin process, they will have physiologically younger appearance. Like you check their cells, you check their DNA, their telomeres are longer, they're doing better. And in fact, there's a great documentary which kicked off the whole 5-2 fasting and all the rest of it. Which is sort of based on this research, which says that in a fasted state, and you have to really understand what that means before everyone jumps in there saying, oh, you don't want to fast because it turns you into this, that, and the other thing. Yeah. Okay, so go read the medical definition of how all this works, because it's not what you think. Just straight up, before anyone starts jumping on me about how this is not healthy or whatever it is. Yeah. This is, proper people who know what they're talking about are talking about this, not just me.
But likewise, you probably should investigate that if it's for yourself.
Yes, and I'm not going to give you advice on whether you should do this or not. This is up to you, your doctor, your family, all that sort of
You're
business.
talking about the research.
But the point is, yes, they found these people on calorie restrictions who are essentially going through various stages of mild fasting. So we're not talking about days here. We're talking about just sort of a calorie reduction here, fewer calories in one day, not complete lack thereof. Yeah. And so in this documentary, it's really good. Michael Mosley, I think you've probably heard of him. He does a number of these medical documentaries. He was 50 at the time when he did this documentary, and he found this other 50-year-old who was a long-term adherent to calorie restriction and optimal eating. So he ate a lot of berries and kale and whatever else, and not a lot of calories. And they went and did some medical tests in comparison to each other. Some basic ones like closing your eyes and balancing on one leg, which is surprisingly difficult to do because part of your balance is your eyes. But older people have more trouble doing it because you've got more damage accumulated in your parts of the ear that help you do it. Yeah. And between the two, of course, the guy on the calorie restriction showed a balance time that was more similar to someone about the age 30. Right. And Michael Mosley was fairly typical. He could balance for only a very short time before he had to put his foot down. Yeah. And then they looked at things like arterial wall calcification and cholesterol levels and body fat and any number of these sort of indicators that you might look at, skin elasticity. And they found that in all cases, the guy on the calorie restriction, the fasted state, sort of diet, was superior by the sort of results you'd expect from someone 10 or so years younger than.
Yeah, right, wow.
And so based on this anyway, Michael Mosley went, hey, wow. And he actually went and did it. And you watch the documentary, it's quite interesting. And it's become a whole fad thing anyway. Yeah. But so this fasting, insulin, metformin, aging as a disease, like as damage accumulation as opposed to a pre-programmed thing. Yeah. However, again, neither the pre-programmed thing nor the as damage explains all of aging. Because, again, all the projections saying, okay, let's stop all damaging. What happens? Well, we still have these senescent cells, which are the cells that are programmed to die. Something's gone wrong in them, and they're going to die. Yeah. And there's a limit to cell division. Some cells just stop dividing. They suicide. Yep. And they're going to happen anyway, even without like the radiation. If you could somehow protect yourself perfectly, yes, it still trails off.
It's still aging.
Yes, but so there's no one view. There's more and more knowledge being discovered about it. Yeah. And the best thing that, of course, is the best advice that we all already know: keep active. And this doesn't mean you've got to work strenuously. Yeah. Just walking. In fact, I was reading an article today saying that the 10,000 steps, actually most of the benefit kicks in at 7,000 steps. It starts to peter off towards the 10,000. Yeah. I think 10,000 was originally just chosen as a round number. Yeah. But someone's actually gone and studied what do they call it, across, what do they call these studies? It went and looked at 15 other studies, which included a lot of people doing this. Yeah. And it was about 7,000 steps was your best point. Yep. So, and that's just walking around. Yep. Eat mostly vegetables, and don't like smoke. Like a balanced diet. Don't smoke and keep have good air quality around you. Yeah, like I think everyone would nod their head and go, yeah, that all makes sense. Yeah, I'm not going to do it, but it makes sense. Yeah. So anyway, there we go. Can we live forever? Maybe. Well, the actuaries say no. No. Eventually,
Guy the actuary.
Eventually, you will have an accident and die. The average lifespan. I was reading another article about actuarial, analysis. If you took out all of the age-related factors, the average lifespan would probably rise to about 600. Right. At which point, you're most likely to have been taken out by something.
Yeah.
You fell off a cliff, hit
Yeah.
by a car, struck by lightning, thrown into the vacuum of space,
Yep.
had a chest burst out of your thing and aliens devour your body. I don't know. You get 600 years.
Well, like the thing is, the amount of old people I've seen this, like they'll fall over, and and it's because of some of those reasons. They are older and their bones are frailer and whatever. But then it's like they might be in bed, bedridden for 6 or 7 weeks whilst healing, and then they have to walk with a walker after that, so they can't do their 10,000 steps anymore. Yeah. And during that time, they lost a lot of muscle. And so even though there's not a disease, they're now so much weaker at that point in their life.
Yeah.
And it just seems like it's a bit of a downward spiral sometimes. And all it was a fall.
Yeah.
They just fell over. They tripped over.
That happened to my wife's nana.
And break a particular bone or a hip or, ribs or whatever. And it forces them, because I know with my parents, they're over 80 and they both walk is a big thing they do. Like mum in particular has always walked and hasn't done the running and and yet she's 80 now,
Yeah.
and dad's the same. Dad's always moved in his job and walked, and it's like the rest of their lifestyle is not that healthy, but they have walked. But that's the thing that I always think of, like if they trip over or something, it just would stop them from walking.
Yeah, and that is often the day. My wife's nana, she fell over in the garden and sort of, I don't think she actually broke a hip, but she broke a leg or she hurt herself badly, and she was out of her a bit. But not only did that weaken her a bit, but it also made her afraid.
Yeah,
like she would often say that she's just a little bit more careful now.
Yeah,
and I'm sort of thinking, a little bit careful. It's kind of probably sensible, but it's a fear because it's she was out of it for so long. She's like, oh, I don't want that to happen again, but. Yeah. It becomes that spiral, doesn't it? Where it's like, okay, so now you're moving less than you were before.
Yeah.
And you're going to take fewer risks. And then she had like another, incident. And then, within a year and a half or something of that fall, she was gone.
And I've seen, we won't go into it now today in this episode, but I've seen a doco about the neurological formation of stuff. And there was a bit on that about even when you're young, you should be kind of training your peripheral vision because it gets smaller and smaller as you get older, because it's a lazy thing as a human. Like we just don't use it, so we bring it in. So one of the suggestions, even like when you walk up and down steps, is you don't look at your feet. You look ahead, because what you're doing is you're training your balance and all that. And quite often older people, the older they get, they're looking at their feet, and they trip over because they're so conscious of it. And but anyway, there was a great doco about the brain and how to kind of keep it going over the years. So well and truly good advice to stay younger there, Surrey. And just so we know, we're not medical advisors here.
Yeah, I know. And I
believe in M. Night Shyamalan. Like we're just going to go onto a beach and get old and die. That's that's fine.
I'm hoping that there's a little forecast that sort of by 2060 we should have that cure for aging.
Yeah.
Like I'd just be happy.
I don't want them to bring that in, but when I'm like 90 and then you're stuck as a 90-year-old, it'd be all right. Like at this age is fine, or younger. You're like, what about the 20-year-olds if they're going to live forever as a 20-year-old?
Yeah, well, I think that's...
Or a 30-year-old or something.
Well, I mean, that's one of the approaches they take if you're looking at the pre-programmed death is, okay, we can't extend, 120 is it.
What if you can pause it?
But pause
your age?
What if you are like equivalent to a 35-year-old all the way up until you're 115?
Yeah.
And then those last 5 years is like the beach, Then you go,
Yeah.
And so you get 100 or something years of strong, vigorous, active life. And it's only at the very end you have like that sudden,
you're
drop
suddenly
off.
Depreciation. Yeah, I think most people would take that.
And you think, well, that's pretty good.
Yeah, 100 years and 5 years of a real tapered off, quick experience.
Yeah, why not?
Go for it.
Better than the other way around. 5 years, good life, than 100 years of...
Or I want that Benjamin Button. I want to go backwards. So let us know what you think about aging. What do you agree? Do you reckon we're going to get there? Is there a fountain of youth? The holy grail that one day will be discovered. So we're going to move on from old. Let us know what you thought about everything we've chatted tonight. Socials, email, website, you know where to find us. If you're listening on one of the podcasting services, Apple, Spotify, all the other places that you can find us, or just directly on the website. If you can, chuck us a rating or a review. It's always good. Get Space Brains out to more earbuds.
Check out filmfestival.spacebrains.com.au.
Yep.
Buy your tickets.
Buy your ticket if you haven't to the actual festival. Buy your aeroplane ticket to Mandurah if that's what you need.
The state borders are open.
They are open now. They are open, and hopefully, maybe even by the time we get to the festival, we're not even having to wear masks anymore. But yeah, come on in to Spacebrains Town. Our next episode, we are going in to have a look at a British film called The Machine. It came out in 2014. Now, don't mistake this film for
Ex Machina.
It looks very similar. I have not seen this film before. The trailer looks exciting. It's all about a robot. Very similar to
Ex Machina.
But it's not.
Ex Machina.
So it's The Machine 2014. Just be very clear. I think it is available on Prime and probably some other places, but go check it out and we will catch you next time.
See ya.
Bye.